Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. Roman Head in Mexico. Jose Garcia Peyon was excavating an ancient grave in the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca zone of Mexico's Toluca Valley in 1933 when he made an astounding discovery. He found a terracotta head separated from the rest of its body. The head was probably left in the grave as an offering. It was found along with a number of other objects underneath 3 floors of a pyramid-like structure. Other than the head, the deceased was buried with gold treasures, pieces of rock crystal, bone, and pottery shards. Scientists were able to date the burial to somewhere between 1476 and 1510. It was only a little more than 500 years ago. On the surface, the discovery looked perfectly normal. There are lots of statues and heads that were buried with the ancient tribes of Mexico before the Spanish arrived. But this particular head caught the attention of scientists at an international level. Why? Because of its similarity to artifacts from ancient Rome. It was a Roman head buried in a tomb in Mexico. So the big question is, how did it get there? It doesn't look anything like other small statues found in pre-Columbian graves. It looks like something you would expect to find in a Roman tomb. Many trusted experts say the artifact is evidence of contact between Rome and the Americas 2,000 years ago. The theory has been promoted heavily by famous archaeologist Romeo H. Hristov. In 2001, Romeo made an assessment of the case. At the time, he was associated with the University of New Mexico. He claimed the head was the work of the Romans in the 2nd century AD. This was confirmed by Bernard Andre with the German Institute of Archaeology in Rome. Bernard said the head is without any doubt Roman. The lab analysis even confirmed it to be ancient, way older than 1500. Stylistic examination further supported the theory that the head was made in Rome. So how did it get to Mexico? That's the big question. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And now for number 9. But first, it's shoutout time. I want to give a big thank you to Katrina Johns and Optimus Princeps for watching and supporting this channel. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to join the Origins Explained family. Number 9. Goody Hammer. In 1844, Sir David Brewster reported to the British Association that he found an impossible object locked in a block of sandstone. The discovery was made at the Goody Quarry in Scotland. David found himself an iron nail, corroded by years of decay. The nail was found not just lying in the stone or partially embedded, but locked inside as if the artifact had been there for millions of years. It looked as though somebody had hammered the thing into the stone on purpose. Nobody ever found out exactly which part of the quarry the nail was found, but the report was made to scientists in the middle of the 19th century. The craziest part was that according to the British Geological Survey, the sandstone bed in Goody Quarry dates back between 360 and 408 million years. If the iron nail truly came from almost 500 million years ago, how could that even be possible? Most experts dismissed it as a fake or said there was more to the story than what was published. The discovery has been lost to history now, and nobody even knows where the iron nail is anymore. Number 8. Egyptian airplanes. The Greeks and the Chinese weren't the only ones interested in flying. At the Cairo Museum in Egypt is an ancient model of what some think is an airplane. The model is tiny, with a wingspan of about 7 inches, and it was crafted from sycamore wood. It doesn't have any robotic abilities, but it does appear to be a mimic of an aerial vehicle. Mainstream archaeologists will tell you it's nothing but a carved bird, but not everyone is convinced. In 1969, Egyptian doctor Khalil Messiha noticed that the wooden figure reminded him of a model airplane. The model doesn't have legs, as you'd expect a wooden bird to have. It also doesn't have tail feathers like a real bird. Instead, the model appears to have a vertical rudder and an airfoil cross-section, even aerodynamically correct. The doctor's brother, who happened to be a flight engineer, reproduced his own exact copy, and he was shocked to see that it really flew through the air when launched. But where was this magnificent artifact discovered? It was dug up at the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, not far from the pyramids of Giza. It dates back to the 3rd century BC. shortly after the death of Alexander the Great. It came from a time of great ingenuity, when the Greeks were inventing screws and indoor plumbing, and it seems to be a far earlier concept of Leonardo da Vinci's own flying inventions. Whether the model is a representation of a bird or an airplane, there is really no way to say for sure. Whoever carved it has been dead for over 2,000 years. But many have speculated the model airplane was based off a flying vehicle the Egyptians witnessed, perhaps a piece of technology from an unknown race of beings who visited our planet. What do you think? Bird, plane, or just coincidence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Number 7. Ancient alien cave paintings. The region of Tassili Najer isn't somewhere you'd want to take a vacation. It's a seemingly endless stretch of inhospitable desert in Algeria. The edges of the region stretch along the borders of Libya, Niger, and Mali, and the total area covers roughly 28,000 square miles of the smoldering hot Sahara Desert. But even in such a brutally unforgiving place, there are secrets. Hidden in caves and drawn in the crevices of crumbling rocks are paintings left behind by ancient people. The first paintings and petroglyphs were found in 1910, and it's been since the 1930s that archaeologists have been scouring the area for new pictures. What makes them so special and so out of place is that many of the pictures depict ancient aliens. The site is unlike any other in the world. The volume of pictures itself is a mystery. There are thousands and thousands of them, but the fact that the rock engravings feature weird beings that look like they came from a faraway planet is what really has scientists interested. In 1956, French explorer Henri Lotze visited Tassili Najer, and over the next 16 months, he and his team identified over 800 paintings. Henri would go on to publish a book about his findings. He was particularly fascinated with the humanoid drawings, who he believed were alien beings. More than that, he described them as Martian gods. The theory was that the people of the desert worshipped Martians, and they drew pictures of them on the rock. The Martian pictures can even be found alongside ordinary drawings of creatures like elephants and giraffes. Number 6. The Newark Holy Stones. In 1860, a man named David Wyrick discovered a set of artifacts inside a cluster of Native American burial mounds. The mounds are located near Newark, Ohio. David found a keystone, a bowl, and a decalogue inside a sandstone box. A decalogue is a copy of the Ten Commandments. The burial mounds were likely created by the Hopewell culture, who existed in this part of America between 100 BC and about 500 AD. And yet the artifacts are very obviously European. But how did European artifacts end up buried in a Native American grave? The artifacts, now known as the Newark Holy Stones, are extremely controversial. One group particularly interested in the artifacts is the Mormons. In their scripture, the Book of Mormon, it says the lost tribes of Israel traveled across the ocean and integrated with the Native Americans hundreds of years ago. The Newark Holy Stones are real artifacts that seem to support that theory. They suggest Europeans made it to America 1,000 years ago, long before Christopher Columbus. That means it's entirely possible the lost tribes of Israel also made it to America on boats. And ever since the artifacts were featured on the History 2 channel in 2013, they have been gaining steady popularity, but archaeologists aren't convinced. Mainstream professionals say the artifacts were forged. They likely came from the 1860s, a group of forgeries from a time when slavery was still a hot debate. The artifacts may have been planted in the burial mound as a way to defend the European or white claim to the land, and therefore their right to own other human beings. Number 5. The artifacts of the Chachapoya. In the remote cloud forests of northern Peru, near the heart of the Amazon River, the cloud warriors of the Chachapoya reigned supreme. They were the masters of the forest long before the Inca Empire ever established itself. They were a group of shamanistic warlords, though they'd eventually be beaten down by the Inca. They were also defeated with help from the Spanish, forced to abandon their lands. Then they disappeared into obscurity. The fortress city of the Chachapoya has stood empty for hundreds of years. It's called Cuelap and stands nearly 10,000 feet above the Utcubamba Valley. It's a megalithic place, sheltered by the clouds themselves. Its walls were 60 feet tall, with much of its architecture just as advanced as that of the Inca. They were a highly sophisticated group of people, and they were mysterious as well. When the Spanish laid their eyes on the Chachapoya, they were shocked. Spanish conquistadors wrote of how the Cloud Warriors had pale white skin like Scandinavians. They looked nothing like the Inca, suggesting they'd come to South America from a faraway land, likely thousands of years ago. German professor Dr. Hans Gifhorn studied the city in 1998. He was shocked by the ruins he witnessed there and by the out-of-place artifacts he found. Many of the relics left behind by the Chachapoya were unique and extremely different from artifacts of the Inca. The professor compared the culture of the Chachapoya to the Old World culture of the Celts. His theory was that people migrated from Europe to South America, likely from Ireland, and they became the legendary Cloud Warriors. Do you believe the Chachapoya were of Irish descent? Or do you think this was just another example of trying to make anyone with light skin be from Europe? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Number 4. The Lanzhou Stone. Researchers Dilin Wang discovered the Lanzhou Stone in a mountainous region of China in the 1990s. The stone is remarkable because it appears to be a meteorite, made from a material scientists were never able to identify. The stone also contains inside of it a small metallic artifact that looks like a piece of machinery. A report from the Lanzhou Morning News in 2002 claimed nearly a dozen geologists and physicists gathered to study the origin of the mysterious stone. That includes researchers from the Lanzhou College and the Institute of Geology and Minerals Research of China Academy. Pretty impressive, right? After a lengthy discussion, scientists supposedly labeled the stone as extremely valuable. This was mostly due to the piece of metal inside of it, with marks clearly showing artificial fabrication. Unfortunately, nobody really knows much about the stone. There are very few sources, which makes what little information is available hard to believe. The stone's current location is unknown, and today there is no mainstream scientist talking about it. Many believe the scientists who discovered it realized how it could change human history and dispose of the evidence. Or it could just be a concretion. Number 3. The GloZell Artifacts. In 1924, archaeologists investigated a cavern filled to the brim with artifacts. It was first brought to the attention of researchers by a farmer who uncovered the cavern while plowing his field in GloZell, France. And once archaeologists began to do their investigation, they were blown away. The cavern contained over 3,000 artifacts, removed over the course of 6 investigative seasons. But it wasn't long before the artifacts became controversial. Experts started to doubt their authenticity, and even now, most mainstream archaeologists believe the GloZell artifacts are fake. The artifacts are controversial because they date back to around 10,200 BC. They aren't all that exciting, meaning the artifacts weren't made using any kind of advanced technology. The relics are simple pieces of pottery and stoneware, and yet they date back 12,000 years to a time before any known human culture created pottery. Even scientists in the 1920s thought the idea of such an ancient culture forming clay into pieces of art was insane. But as crazy as it seems, the artifacts are most likely real. Their discovery wasn't part of any hoax. They were found by 17-year-old Emile Fredon as he plowed a field on his family farm. His cow's foot got stuck in the ground, which revealed the underground chamber filled with human bones and pieces of ceramic. It was hardly an elaborate hoax. But the big question still remains a century later. Who was so advanced in France 12,000 years ago that they were building vases in an underground pottery workshop? Who do you think made this ancient pottery? Let me know down below. Number 2. Dyton Rock. Dyton Rock has been an object of great mystery in New England for centuries. Nobody knows much about it other than at some point before 1680, it turned up in what is now Berkeley, Massachusetts. A person or people of unknown origin left a 40-ton boulder in the middle of nowhere scrawled with enigmatic images. The first mention of the rock was from Harvard graduate John Danforth in the 17th century. He visited Dyton and drew his own picture of the drawings on the stone. That picture is currently stored in the collection at the British Museum. Even all these years later, scientists are no closer to understanding the carvings on the stone. Some suggest the drawings were made by Native Americans. That would make the most sense. However, the petroglyphs are just a little off. They don't look too much like other Native American petroglyphs in the region. Ezra Stiles in the 18th century suggested the stone as the work of Phoenicians who traveled to North America thousands of years ago. Danish historian Carl Christian Raffin was convinced in the 19th century that Dyton Rock was made by the Vikings. Then, in the 20th century, Professor Edmund de la Barre from Brown University suggested the carvings were made by Portuguese travelers 400 years ago. Now, in the 21st century, archaeologists still can't agree on who put the rock in Berkeley or what story the images carved on it are trying to tell. Number 1. The Kimbaya Artifacts. In Bogotá's Museo del Oro, or the Gold Museum in English, there are some artifacts on display that need an explanation. The artifacts were found in Colombia's central Cauca Valley at some point in the late 1800s. Unfortunately, it's unclear exactly where they came from because they were looted, not excavated by archaeologists. Experts think they probably came from a pair of tombs, but it isn't entirely known. The only reason they're in the museum at all is because someone turned them over to Colombian authorities years ago, wanting to get them on display for everyone to see. There are over 100 small gold figurines in the collection. They date anywhere from 300 to 1000 AD. Each one is between 2 and 3 inches in length. All are made of solid gold, and all of them look an awful lot like flying machines. Mainstream archaeologists say the gold figurines represent mammals, birds, bats, fish, and flying insects. But others have noticed how the figurines look an awful lot like airplanes. They have obvious aerodynamic features, and some appear to have fuselages and stabilizers. Could these artifacts be proof that the lost Kimbaya civilization witnessed real flying machines? These people flourished over 1,300 years ago in Colombia, and no one has ever found evidence that they learned how to build machines. But what if they witnessed others using flying technology, like visitors from another world, for example? What do you think is the truth behind some of these strange, out-of-place artifacts? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!